Hello and welcome to ThePrint Softcover, where we launch select non-fiction books. I'm Sudeep, and today's book is The Other Mohan in Britain's Indian Ocean Empire. We have with us the author Amrita Shah. She is also the author of the award-winning Ahmedabad, A City in the World, Vikram Sarabhai, A Life, and Tele-Guillotined, How Television Changed India. And she was also once a journalist, as she says. And for almost a decade in writing this book, she was chasing her ancestors across an ocean, a dozen cities, and 3 continents. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, congratulations on the book. You can really feel the amount of work that you've put in when you read it.
Thank you.
So, can you tell our viewers a little bit about what the book is and why you chose the title The Other Mohan?
So, I had, as a child, I was aware that I had a great grandfather who went to South Africa, my maternal great grandfather, and that his trip, for various reasons, was very critical for our family. I mean, that is part of the kind of mystery that I'm trying to unravel in the book. And so I was always very, very curious, and I was quite fascinated by the idea that I had an ancestor who went so far. And I always intended at some point to, kind of look into it. But and around 2005 or so, or seven or so, I started thinking seriously about. I started talking to my relatives and trying to see what I could find about them and stuff like that. And I realized that there was nothing. We didn't even have a date for when he went. We didn't have any letters, travel documents, nothing at all. But someone mentioned that he had something to do with Gandhi. And I thought that was kind of, and I had not heard that before, so I was a little taken aback, of course. And it so happened that that was a time when I was also, my previous 2 books had Gandhi sort of somewhere in the story, though not kind of in the center of it. And so I knew that there was a lot of material on Gandhi, a lot of archival material. A lot of people had written their memories and so on, diaries and things like that. So I thought, okay, there is a possibility for me, if I look at Gandhi's the records on Gandhi, I might find something about this person who was not a well-known person at all. But there were certain similarities, and that's why the other Mohan comes into play. He was also a Gujarati. He was also educated, and that's, if you know the pattern of migration in the Western Indian Ocean, in the time of the British Empire, then you understand why there were very few educated people who had gone abroad. So you had, and the whole fact of Hindus going was at that time because there was this sort of rule against unspoken sort of a diktat against people, against Hindus traveling across the Kalapani, as they called it. So there were very few of these people, and so this particular professional class, Gujarati Hindus who were also educated and were either teachers or interpreters or a lawyer, as Gandhi was. And so I started, it's sort of in my mind, it just became this kind of, Gandhi became a sort of, it was Gandhi and my great grandfather, of course, though there's nothing to tie them together except this possibility that there was something. That they had met, and it was very likely they had met and they had known each other, as I said, because it was a very small community in South Africa of what is called passenger Indians, that is non-indentured labor. So I started thinking about the story like this. It was not very well clear in my mind at that point, of course. It was just, this is a starting point. And very early on, I contacted several Gandhi scholars, and I got one of them sent me this sort of clipping from Indian Opinion, which was Gandhi's newspaper, of a certain incident, a certain event in the Satyagraha campaign, his satyagraha campaign unfolded, in sort of several phases, but this was in the period 1907, 1908. And this places my great grandfather in the campaign. He
Mhm.
had a name, and he said he participated in the campaign. And and this is a very famous incident of also the pass burning incident, where the Indians protesting against the Black Act burnt
Mhm.
their identity papers. This is quite a kind of famous, and it's been dramatized by many, like Richard Attenborough and so on. So I already had a starting point, it was Gandhi related. So I
Mhm.
knew he had participated. But I kept thinking that his lifestyle, because he went back to India. And
Yeah.
whatever little I knew of his lifestyle, he used to sort of, the kind of foods that he liked were somewhat English in orientation. Not he used to use sort of cutlery that is very unusual. And he liked to speak in English, and he gave tuitions to English, uh, a few, I think, people who worked in multinationals. He taught
Okay.
them Gujarati and Hindi. So I just thought these didn't seem like very Gandhian traits.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused. I said, what is the story here? So this is just the starting point.
Mhm.
As the story unfolds, which is something that it's like a bit of a thriller, like structure, so I can't really tell you the whole story. But you see how he is the other Mohan, and Mohan is, of course, Mohan Lal is my great grandfather's name,
Mhm.
and Mohan Das is Karamchand Gandhi, and you have both of them named, partly at least, after Krishna. And
Yeah.
so there is a sort of a little bit of mischief involved here as well.
Yeah.
So it's a play with the name, but it is very much, as it worked out. The story I have, following a kind of more ordinary, relatively more ordinary, insignificant person, um, turned out to kind of actually resonate, and the kind of information I found in documents and things like that actually told me a parallel story.
Mhm.
So you see them coming together. There is a participation in this campaign, as I mentioned, this very
Yeah.
important event. But there is another story that unfolds, and that allows me to tell the story of the diaspora in a sense. Not that I set out to say I'm going to now record a history of the diaspora, but it allowed me to then, that's what. And then there is, well, anyway, there's so much that I can't at the moment reveal.
Yeah, I think the twist that you're talking about, when I got to it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
But just talking about going back to these documents and even finding these documents of what is a very ordinary man, even for
Yes.
people whose sort of generations have been in India itself, these documents and tracing these family histories are very difficult. So, what was that journey like? What was it like chasing your ancestors through like continents?
I think, I this is why having been a journalist for a very long time really, really helps, because I don't know, one has that kind of idea that you'll find any story. Uh, and I mean, it's always happened, as a journalist at a time when, we had very little money in the media. You had, when you traveled somewhere, you had to get your story. You felt really guilty if you didn't get it. So I had that, I don't know, that brashness, that confidence, whatever, this idea that I was going to go and I was going to get something.
Hmm.
um, and I think, again, because as a journalist, that kind of desperation one builds into it, that one has to. And in nonfiction too, there's really no funding, or so one makes the most of, and so once you're there, you kind of say, well, you have to get something or it's been worthless. You kind of keep telling yourself that. And so you do everything. I don't know how others kind of, but that's what I did. I kind of googled a lot. I So I found, names and papers. And so early on, as I kind of write in the book, I came across a paper written by a historian. She was very young at that time. She was Durban based, and that paper was about interpreters in
Yeah.
Natal. Natal is one part of South Africa, and so when I went to the first time I went to South Africa, which was January 2013, I contacted her from through the email that was given, and it just turned out that at that point she was in the same city. I was in Johannesburg at that point, and she was there, and we met, and it was because she kind of looked up the archives. And again, these are very silly things, can be a hindrance. I just didn't know how to. There's a certain a way to enter the archive, which I just didn't know. So I was trying and I wasn't getting anywhere. And she, just before I went to her office, she had run a search, and found all these, these kind of leads for me. So when I get there, she's just, I suddenly have this set of, and of course I do have to follow them. They're all over the country, and but it was a great breakthrough for me, and then things just got, I don't know, they just fell into place after that.
Yeah, I think when you read that moment in the book, it really is like this overwhelming amount of emotion. It's like, oh my God, finally.
Yes. I mean, had I come back, empty handed, I just would
It
have
was
been
such
so
a moment
upset.
of like to find somebody who's written about such a niche topic about Indian
Right.
interpreters, and then also like it just all really fell into place. It was very serendipitous, like for it all
Yes.
to happen.
Yes. Though I think serendipity just does play a part. I've found, as a
Hmm.
a nonfiction writer who uses research a lot.
Yeah.
I just find when you enter a sort of a focus, you're looking at this particular
Mhm.
subject, then somehow things just unfold at the right time. The right thing
Yeah.
appears. That's how it seems.
And even at that moment where, you can't go to that particular city where the archive is because
Yes.
you're moving away, but then she tells you where you're going is where another archive is located. It was like, it almost felt like fiction while reading it because
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
so unbelievable.
And after that first trip, I went back thinking, wow, I have so much,
Hmm.
because I had quite a lot. And also this whole diaspora opening up, because one, in India we don't think about the diaspora, and
Hmm.
here, apart from my story, I was seeing photographs of people working, and this whole history of how people went either as indentured labor or as traders and so on. It was also rich, that when I came back, I thought, wait, I have my material, and I'm going to write. But it niggled away at me. The fact that I had not been to an archive, it really bothered me. So, and then of course, it
That
was
happened.
a whole different story once I got there.
Yeah, this part of your book is very zoomed in. There's also parts of your book that are very sort of zoomed out. You go back into the history of
Right.
South Africa, go back into the history of Surat and Gujarat and
Yes.
Bombay. How did you decide sort of how far back to go and where to stop, where to start,
Yeah.
what threads to follow?
So when I started, when I in my mind, I had this image always of a young man at the Bombay Harbor or on a ship, and ready, just about to leave, and that was always there.
Hmm.
And as I say somewhere else, I had another image, which was that he looked like Napoleon or Nelson, or and I realized when I was doing the book that how not like that he would actually have been, and it would have been a very crowded deck, and sweaty bodies and lots of people, and bedrolls and
Yeah.
tiffin boxes and not at all this grand solitary figure that but I think so that I think I kept thinking that that's how I would start. That
Hmm.
that's how it would begin. That I had this ancestor, and that I was fascinated by him going, and that was where it would start, and then the journey. But as I thought more about it, and as I say in the beginning, the impact he had on my life, I mean, it's one journey that an ancestor took, a few years, and he came back to India. But that journey is really the reason for, I don't know, a sort of existential journey almost for my family, but also for. So I mentioned that I went to a school that was. A kind of very English, a very anglicized school. So I had an education that was a more I'd say colonial kind of education, and that has formed me as a writer. So, and I it's also formed, I think we don't think very much about the post-colonial affect. We think that, I mean, we won freedom in 1947, and that was a kind of moment of finality. But the more I was thinking about this whole subject, this whole um, trail that I was following, I kept thinking that that we are so very much shaped by the colonial experience, and of course, scholars have written so much about it. But as a person, it was a very personal sense of the language I write in, the way I think also about what kind of books I want to write, the structure, the tone, etc. Everything is shaped very much by the colonial experience. And then, of course, it's evolved in its own way. And so the more I thought about this, I realized that the book, I needed to go back to the moment before colonization, and which is why the fact that Mohanlal, my ancestor, his family came from Surat.
Yeah.
He came from Bombay. I mean, but he was,
Yeah.
his family was from Surat, allowed me to go to that point in the history of the Indian Ocean, which was before colonization, and actually kind of that point of when the Europeans first enter and
Yeah.
set up their factories, and it's at that point it's just normal trade, right? They're just setting up trading houses. It's not, they're not an empire. They're not ruling over India at all. And so I think that was and I did realize that I was, that expanse of time meant a lot of explanation had to be given, which was a little tricky. Also because to make it interesting, to hold the reader's interest. But I felt that if I didn't give that, it would lack the kind of quality that I felt this trip. The trip meant to me more than just unraveling this story. It was
Yeah.
deep sort of effect on, not, and when I say my life, I don't mean my life, but I think the writer's life, the Indian writer, or the Indian as a citizen today. We kind of living with in a post-colonial society, and but not actually aware or thinking about how, what it is, how are we impacted. Yeah.
Another sort of device you use is parts of the story are in first person. It is, like the title of the book says, a very personal journey into
Yes.
history. So, was it when you started the book itself, did you know that you wanted to sort of do it in first person?
Not at all. No, I really didn't know. Beyond the fact that I had this image that I thought I should start with, and that Mohanlal was the center of my story.
Yeah.
That I didn't really, I didn't know. I think the first person came when I started explaining why his journey was important, and that also I do. I don't do right at the beginning. I don't tell
Yeah.
everything. I right, there's a very important
It's
part that comes
world
in.
building.
Yes, so it comes in a little later, and that is a really important part. But so I guess I was trying to explain my own, like, why did it fascinate me so much, it, people have this is like, the more I talk about this, more people tell me that they had an uncle who did something, or
Yeah.
they had a, so it's not that uncommon, but it really fascinated me for some reason, and I think I was trying to explain that to myself and, of course, put it down in words. And that's when I think the I
Mhm.
began to come in. That's one reason. But I think the other reason was I had so much fun doing the book. The whole journey and the kind of parallel journey, because Mohanlal went on a
Yeah.
journey which was striking, because people didn't travel that much. You had to be really wealthy to travel in those days and
Mhm.
all that. So to take that ordinary person's journey, and then to kind of me going on this parallel journey with no funding or very little, this trying hard for grants to, I thought it was kind of I can't say entertaining, but I thought it was the fun of it all, the
Yeah.
difficulties, but also the friends that one made along the way. And for instance, going to when I go to the Indian Central Business District in Durban, and everyone tells me it's a really dangerous place, and I thought all that was part of the texture of the book, because and how I stumble upon things.
Yeah.
So that's why the I comes in then more and more.
I think even when you start using the I, there's also a lot of these small observations on life in South Africa or on life in India that
Right,
comes in, like your taxi driver that you talk about, and little glimpses of what his sort of work life is and his home life is. And I think these sort of moments enhance your book even more because you're reading about what was then, what is now, how has it
right,
changed. You sort of get to make these observations for yourself as you read it as well.
right. And I think the diaspora, I think we don't pay attention to, because in the diaspora people are writing their own histories,
Mhm.
but there's that bridge between India and the diaspora in terms of the knowledge, and the kind of material, the research material that's available. There needs to be more. So when I go and I'm meeting the current, the people who are, the descendants of those pioneers,
Yeah.
I think this was also I needed to bring them in. I felt it was nice for me to, it's them, the ones who went long ago, and the ones who are there now.
Yeah.
It's sort of it was nice to bring that in.
So again, when you started the book, you sort of knew that he went to South Africa, but you didn't know anymore. But once you started researching, you can see through the book how the scope of your research and the sort of places he went on the map keep expanding as the story expands. What did that feel like? Was it overwhelming? Did you ever feel like, oh no, this is way more than I could talk?
I must be crazy, because the book got done and I said, "Oh my God, 10 years have gone by." But this, I think the chase, the it was so important to know the story for myself, that I think so. Once I kind of decide that, oh my God, I have to go from here to here. The first time, right? The first time
Yeah.
I realized that I had to. Was not, oh my God, I have to do this. It was
Mhm.
just, wow, what will I find there?
Yeah.
It's only once you kind of realize the difficulties of spending a month in yet another country, and that you kind of realize how hard it all is. And of course, within South Africa too, he kind of
Yeah. Moving around.
moves around a bit, which yeah, which was, but no, I mean, as I said, I think it was later that
Mhm.
I kind of, after I've done the whole book and there is no, it's a fait accompli, I then suddenly said, what the hell have I done?
But without giving much away, there are parts of the book which are, very intimate family history that we're sort of getting to know.
Right. Yeah.
What was your family's reaction to it when you said you wanted to probe it and then that you wanted to publish a book about it?
Yeah. I think I, family history is a difficult thing to do. It has its own, I don't know, its own atmosphere. I don't know what else to call it, because so many things involved in that. In this case, as I said, I mean, my grandmother passed away, who would have been, really, she is. the center of it all in a sense. And she passed away, and my mother passed away in 2000. And in a sense, I started feeling like if I don't, like I just felt like I need to capture what is what people can tell me, because people will forget and people will pass away, and this story will be lost. And so I started talking to people, and they were quite open to talking to me. These are my mother's siblings. I started there,
Mhm.
and they were quite because I think, I mean, this is, as I said, such a central story for my
Yeah.
family, that so we all have some connect. I don't know whether it's an emotional connection or some speculation. So we've all, but I don't think I would have been able to talk to them before it. Maybe I just had to grow a little older and be able to, so that they could talk to me a little
Yeah.
more freely. But everyone talked at that point.
Mhm.
But this was very early on, and and I kind of started saying, asking things like, about Gandhi, what did they know, what did they, and frankly, they didn't know very much about.
Yeah.
As you see, the information I actually got was really very little,
Yeah.
because we really didn't know. I think that was
Mhm.
partly the impetus for my going on this journey. My other family, which becomes evident when they were also very generous with their time. They, people were willing to talk, and
Mhm.
very frankly, and they did try to look for. I said, please, can you find photographs? Can you look for
Mhm.
letters? Can you look for anything?
Yeah.
And they did do that, and they did honestly talk to me about how they felt about things, and what they thought might have happened or might not have happened. um, Having said that, and I did offer to share my findings,
Mhm.
not that I actually knew what I was going to find. So,
Yeah.
initially I just thought, look, I'm actually going out on this trail that we've all wondered about. And I'm
Mhm.
actually going, and I'm offering to have a professional sort of some amount of experience of doing research, and so I'm doing this. And so
Yeah.
I thought I would share my findings, but that kind of didn't happen. And so I was not in Bombay for
Mhm.
much of that time. My whole family is, well, most of my family is in Bombay, but I did kept telling them that now I've done this, and I didn't actually, I sort of, I said, well, I've uncovered this part and I've uncovered
Mhm.
that part. There might be a bit of excitement, but I think over that long, long durée, I think I sort of lost. I kind of developed the story because a lot of time was just spent writing it,
Yeah.
structuring it and writing it, and I mean, I think I wrote several drafts. Again and again and again. So quite a bit of time had passed, and so I was a little concerned. But you can't go on and on telling someone, I'm doing this, I'm doing, I'm here. So I was, but I think they've been very appreciative, and some of them are still reading the book. So, so we'll see.
We'll see.
But I think they've been generous, and I know it's hard,
Mhm.
to do this for on both sides.
Yeah.
For me too, because I have to just say I have to do this. Like I have to uncover this, and I have to keep going on, without, because once you're in a research situation, you have to go with whatever leads are coming up. You can't miss the opportunity to, if you're meeting someone who's going to tell you more, you don't. So it's all around a tricky situation.
Yeah.
But I have to say that in recent times, I think family histories, and more than family history, because it's not just, I think I would not have felt comfortable if I was just doing a family history. Because I would say, why would a reader be interested?
Mhm.
And secondly, it would just, but I think here, it connects to a much larger history.
Yeah.
and which is why I feel that that it's important. Family histories are important to do, and more people are doing that. A lot of new books are coming out. Wonderful new books all over the world. I've seen, something in America and the UK, and a lot of people are exploring their. It was usually done in fiction, but I think people are doing it now in non-fiction.
Even just with family histories, there's this discussion that's currently going around on the role of public historians and sort of bringing these histories to light. And you spoke earlier about sort of building a narrative in a way that's accessible to people,
Right.
condensing these large histories, these vast expanses of information
Yes.
into something that's not only cohesive but entertaining to read in a way, I guess,
Right.
because
Right.
you do want people to not put down your book.
Of course. Of course.
What do you think then about, the role of a public historian or versus academic historians?
I don't think there's a versus, and I know the controversy you're referring to is William Dalrymple's
Yeah.
statement, recent statement. I would say that he sort of points out the lack of
Mhm.
historians, popular history
Yeah.
being written, and I take his point, but I think that his diagnosis is incorrect. I don't agree with the blaming of academic historians for this. I think that, in the 1980s or so, when I came into journalism, academics were writing or commenting on current events all the time. They were providing context. They were being interviewed. They were a lot of them, whether it was sociologists, historians, political scientists. They were a very important part of the media conversation,
Yeah.
particularly in the magazines that I worked with. Imprint was a magazine I worked with, and we used
Mhm.
to not just with Illustrated Weekly of India. You had academics very much in the mainstream media writing. That changed because the media dumbed down, and it became a dirty word to be intelligent. Literally, I know, because I'm finding it less and less. It's less and less possible for me to write very often because I'm constantly told, don't be so intelligent, as if that's like. So I think, and that's one thing. Secondly, I think this kind of culture, you build sort of then there's only space for a couple of people to be celebrities,
Mhm.
and then they become the kind of they become the they have a lot of, then the media always goes to them
Yeah.
to comment on everything, whether it's Mughal history or whether it's a political event that's happened currently, or a riot that's broken out. You will only go to those same people. Those
Mhm.
people will be expected to write blurbs for books written by others. They will be so they will I'm not questioning their abilities. Very
Yeah.
talented people they could be, but they occupy a much larger space. And so what happens is that the others who write, whether it's academics or even a nonfiction writer, like not just me, there's so many now writing there. I've written many books, but there are people who are writing debut books right now, all research based, very good, but they will not get the same kind of exposure. As so there is this sort of political economy that creates celebrities, and
Mhm.
I think that is the reason why we don't have. I think that what Dalrymple was talking about are some historians who I really love reading, like a Simon Schema, or there are like so many. I can think of others. Peter Ackroyd, for instance, is a semi
Yeah.
sort of but writes histories of cities and so on. Uh, but we just don't have that space where you take a book and make it, and I'm glad. I mean, right now I shouldn't be saying this because you are talking to me and giving me a voice to talk about my book, and that is wonderful. So maybe things are now changing a little bit, but I think this has been the reason that
Mhm.
academics have sort of left the mainstream.
Mhm.
uh, and I think that space, it's the media that should make space for that again. Why do we not, when for instance there's a certain political event, or we're talking about a world event that's in the news, why do we not find academics to comment on it? We
Yeah.
don't. We will go back to the two or three people who are very, very visible, either on television or writing columns, or so I think his diagnosis is not. I don't agree with that.
But I guess on that note, I think you should get your hands on the other Mohan for a very refreshing perspective of the history of Indian migration. It is a very interesting book. It will keep you hooked. And thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. And congratulations again on a decade of work condensed into this one book.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this. Thank you.
So, this is me, Therese, signing off. Please do subscribe to The Print for more such discussions.